Today we are going to see about basal ganglia. As the templates used in this slide indicates some vague idea about basal ganglia. With the puzzle, we will get into the topic. From this slide to upcoming few slides, we will be revising about the classes took on the previous sessions. Here we are going to see about the development of brain. The brain is developed from the neural tube. At its cranial end, the neural tube gives rise to three swellings, or it also called as primary brain vesicles. They are prosencephalon, mesencephalon, and rhombencephalon. The prosencephalon, also called as forebrain, mesencephalon, also called as midbrain, and rhombencephalon, also called as hindbrain. In the later stage of development, the secondary brain vesicles includes the telencephalon and the diencephalon, which are derived from the prosencephalon, and mesencephalon. Finally, the metencephalon and myelencephalon, which are derived from the rhombencephalon. The remaining part of the neural tube will give rise to the spinal cord, and each brain part developed from individual cephalons. Example, the telencephalon give rise to the cerebral cortex. The diencephalon give rise to the thalamus, hypothalamus, epithalamus, so on. The mesencephalon gives rise to the midbrain. The metencephalon will give rise to the pons and cerebellum. The myelencephalon gives rise to the medulla, and the remaining are derived. The remaining part of the neural tube is going to give off the spinal cord. The nervous system is divided into central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system includes brain and spinal cord. The peripheral nervous system includes the 12 pair of cranial nerves as well as the spinal nerves. The central nervous system includes brain and spinal cord. The brain consists of cerebrum, cerebellum, and the brainstem. The diencephalonic structures are located within the substance of cerebral cortex in the medial aspect. As such, when you see the cerebral hemisphere consists of four lobes: the frontal lobe, parietal lobe, temporal lobe, and the occipital lobe. A vague idea about the functions of the lobe. Frontal lobe is regarding the consciousness. The parietal lobe is responsible for the movement and the stimulus perceptions. The occipital lobe is for vision. The temporal lobe is for speech. Coming to the brainstem cranial most consists of the midbrain. Midbrain derived from the mesencephalon. Pons and medulla from the rhombencephalon. All these three structures together makes the brainstem, which is responsible for basic vital functions, example breathing, respiration, etc. And the next part of the brain will be the cerebellum. The cerebellum is responsible for movement coordination. When we see, these are going to be the parts of the brain, and this medulla is going to continue as the spinal cord. When we take a section, we will be seeing the structures which are located within the brain. We will see it in the next slide. These are various planes of sections used to study. We will probably use a mid-sagittal section, which divides the brain into right and left half, and the transverse section, or the cross section, which divides the brain into an anterior and a posterior part, and a horizontal plane which divides it into a superior and a inferior part. These sections we will be using. In sections, you may see certain structures are in white color and certain structures are in gray color. Whatever in gray is going to be the gray matter of the brain. Structures in white is going to be the white matter of the brain. If there is a group of gray matter surrounded by white matter, then that is called as nucleus. This is going to be the mid-sagittal section of the brain, which divides the brain into a right and a left half. This medial section will be showing the brain parts. We know about the cerebrum, cerebellum, brainstem, spinal cord, etc. But in the medial aspect, the derivatives of diencephalon will be present. number one. Next will be space between the brain parts. The spaces are called as ventricles. The ventricles will be filled with CSF. CSF is required for the lubrication and protection of the brain. The CSF is throughout going to circulate. Yes, so these ventricles are two lateral ventricles on the cranial end between the cerebral hemispheres, which is going to communicate via the interventricular foramen to the third ventricle. Third ventricle, from the previous session, if you remember, the third ventricle is the cavity of diencephalon. The third ventricle is going to continue as the fourth ventricle via the cerebral aqueduct. Cerebral aqueduct at the level of midbrain, we will be seeing. The fourth ventricle is located between the pons and medulla anteriorly and the cerebellum posteriorly. The fourth ventricle is going to continue as the central canal of spinal cord. So in the section, the brain vesicles, brain parts will be seen. There will be some cavity called as ventricle. The cavity will be filled with the CSF. In this picture, we are going to see about the gray matter and the white matter content at the coronal section of brain. We know the unit of brain is neuron. It consists of cell body and axons. Group of cell bodies within the brain makes the nuclei. Outside the nervous system makes the ganglia. Brain, when we take at any section, there will be certain white matter region and there will be some gray matter region. Where all gray matter is seen, there all the cell bodies will be present, and where the white matter is seen, there the axons of the neurons will be present. Cell bodies is where the signals is passed, and the white matter, the axion, is the route via which the impulses are traveling. And when we take at this section, from the superior aspect, first you will be seeing the fissure. This is going to be the median longitudinal fissure between the two cerebral hemispheres, and very next to it or just below to it will be the corpus callosum. Corpus callosum is a white matter fiber, example for commissural fiber, because it is communicating both the side cerebral cortex, so commissural fiber. And just below to it will be the cavity of the lateral ventricle. The central part of the lateral ventricle is appreciated, and then the body of the fornix in the median aspect will be there, and below to it will be the third ventricle. On either sides of the third ventricle, the largest gray matter collection is present, and that is called as the thalamus. So this whole lot, these two structures is going to be called as the thalamus. Just lateral to thalamus, we may appreciate the band of white matter called as internal capsule. Internal capsule above is continuation of the corona radiata. See, from the cortex, neocortex, the axons are traveling, or it is converging to the medial aspect, and that is called the fan-shaped structure or fan-shaped white matter fibers from the neocortex is called as corona radiata. This corona radiata diverge here and passes, or here it is given the name as internal capsule. While studying internal capsule, we would have read the internal capsule is located between the thalamus and caudate nucleus medially and the lentiform nucleus laterally. And this internal capsule is going to continue below as the tracts, the spinal or cortico-nuclear tracts or any tracts. The white matter fibers will be passing like this. This is the fate of the white matter here. Now coming to the lentiform nucleus. So this whole lot is considered to be, this whole lot is going to be called as the lentiform nucleus. Since it is in the shape of lens, it is called as lentiform nucleus. The parts of it and the description of it, we will see it in the proper basal ganglia class. Here we should know this is thalamus, this is lentiform nucleus. Lateral to lentiform nucleus will be some white matter fibers passing, and it is called as external capsule. So on either sides of the lentiform nucleus, medially placed the internal capsule, laterally placed the external capsule. Just lateral to external capsule will be a thin sheet of gray matter called as the claustrum. The claustrum is the gray matter fiber which is located between two white matter bands. You can see medial band is called as the external capsule. Hopefully the lateral band will be the extreme capsule. And still more laterally, the last structure will be the insular lobe of the cerebral cortex. So from medial to lateral, medial most will be the third ventricle, next will be the thalamus, then still more lateral will be the internal capsule, then the lentiform nucleus, lateral to it will be the external capsule, then comes the claustrum, then the extreme capsule and the insular lobe. From medial to lateral we know. From above downwards, most cranially, the sulci and gyri of the cerebral cortex will be present. In the median aspect, the medial longitudinal fissure will be present. Then comes the white matter fiber called the corpus callosum, example for commissural fiber. And on either sides, inferior to it lies the lateral ventricular cavity, and then the median aspect consists of the fornix, continues below as the third ventricle, and on the inferior aspect we may appreciate the subthalamic nucleus. You can see here, see the cursor, subthalamic nucleus, where in which the thalamus is resting, and just below to it is the substantia nigra. Substantia nigra, we see it in the midbrain, and inferior most will be the mammillary body. Altogether, we know what are the structures appreciated at this section. From this slide onwards, we are going to get into the proper topic, the basal ganglia. We know the difference between ganglia and nuclei. Ganglia is nothing but group of cell bodies found outside the nervous system. Nuclei is nothing but group of cell bodies present within the nervous system. Then what a controversial topic is this basal ganglia? Something is going to present within the brain only. Then we have given the name as basal ganglia here. This name is actually an ancient terminology of giving, but nowadays we call this particular structure as basal nuclei only, because this particular topic is not confined with one set of group of gray matter alone. It is cluster of many gray matter structures cumulatively called as basal ganglia. The basal ganglia includes the subcortical masses of gray matter which are situated in the white core of each cerebral hemispheres. The parts of it includes number 1, the corpus striatum. The corpus striatum includes the caudate nucleus along with the lentiform nucleus. This is going to be the lentiform nucleus. This is going to be the caudate nucleus. The head of the caudate nucleus and tail of the caudate nucleus will be somewhere here. So the caudate nucleus along with the lentiform nucleus makes the corpus striatum. The next structure will be the claustrum. We know this is going to be the thin sheet of gray matter parallel to the lentiform nucleus is called as the claustrum. The structure which is located in between them will be the external capsule. The third content will be the subthalamic nucleus. This is going to be the subthalamic nucleus, where in which the thalamus is going to rest. The fourth content will be the substantia nigra. Substantia nigra, we know it is a part of midbrain. And the last content will be the zona incerta, Zona incerta is a thin gray sheet of gray matter which is intervening between the ventral nucleus of the thalamus and the subthalamic nucleus. These five are going to be the content or the part of basal ganglia. When we are confined about the corpus striatum, we may imagine as a triangular content. Yes, triangular content, that is the head of the caudate nucleus, the lentiform nucleus lateral aspect, and the lentiform nucleus medial aspect. The lateral aspect of the lentiform nucleus is called as putamen, and the medial aspect of the lentiform nucleus is called as globus pallidus. So all these three, we can say the caudate nucleus with the lentiform nucleus makes the corpus striatum, or we can say the caudate nucleus with the putamen and the globus pallidus makes the corpus striatum. Still more classifying the corpus striatum, it is again divided into neostriatum and paleostriatum. The neostriatum or it is also called as striatum, simply striatum. That includes only the caudate nucleus and the putamen. Only the caudate nucleus and the putamen is called as the neostriatum. Why it is called as neostriatum or striatum? It's just like that, a striatum, because there will be connections between the putamen and the caudate nucleus. Coming to the paleostratum or pallidum, the lentiform nucleus is divided into two by means of an external medullary lamina. This is going to be the external medullary lamina which divides these two structures. Yes, so the globus pallidus alone is called as the paleostriatum or pallium. So hereafter, if I mention corpus striatum, it includes caudate nucleus, putamen, and the globus pallidus. If we represent only striatum, it includes caudate nucleus and the putamen alone. If we mention only pallium or paleostriatum, it includes only globus pallidus. So still more studying about the globus pallidus, the medial aspect of the lentiform nucleus, it is still more divided into two by means of internal medullary lamina into globus pallidus interior and globus pallidus exterior or external. Globus pallidus internal and globus pallidus external. Whole lot of the lentiform nucleus is now divided into three parts. The lateralmost will be the putamen, the medial structure will be the globus pallidus externus, and the innermost will be the globus pallidus internus. And here we are coming across the caudate nucleus, the head of the caudate nucleus. See, caudate nucleus is like a tadpole. It will be engulfing the thalamus. Think like a fish. The mouth end of the fish and the tail end of the fish will be related to the lentiform nucleus, exactly to the putamen. But the body will be engulfing the thalamus. This is the structural relationship of the caudate nucleus. And next, we will be talking about the claustrum. We told it is a thin sheet of gray matter. On medial to it will be the external capsule, lateral to it will be the extreme capsule. And substantia nigra, detailed explanation of it is given in the midbrain session. And zona insana we have already discussed. So these are the parts of basal ganglia. We are visualizing the ventricles. The lateral ventricle, which consists of an anterior horn, an inferior horn, and the posterior horn. This is going to be the third ventricle. This is going to be the fourth ventricle. They both are communicated by means of the aqueducts. So this is the ventricular system seen in the median aspect. Just lateral to the third ventricle lodges the thalamus, the largest gray matter. This is going to be the thalamus. Yes. So just engulfing the thalamus lodges the gray matter nuclei called as the caudate nucleus. The caudate nucleus is tadpole in shape. See, this red color structure is going to be the caudate nucleus. It is tadpole in shape. The head end is related anteriorly or to the just inferior to the anterior horn of lateral ventricle, and the tail end near the inferior horn of the lateral ventricle. It is surrounding the thalamus. This caudate nucleus is a part of the basal ganglia. This is the orientation of it. The next lateral structure what we appreciate will be the internal capsule. We have told the internal capsule is the continuation above of the corona radiata. Below it is going to continue as the plaques. Yes, so this is the orientation of it. Next lateral structure will be the lentiform nucleus. We told the lentiform nucleus is lens shape. The medial aspect of it is called as the globus pallidus. The innermost part of it is called as globus pallidus interior. This one. Then globus pallidus exterior. This light green. And coming to the outermost putamen. All these three structures together makes the lentiform nucleus. So lentiform nucleus, a lens in shape, has two parts, the outer putamen and the inner globus pallidus. The globus pallidus is divided into globus pallidus internus and globus pallidus externus. Coming to the communication of this lentiform nucleus with that of the caudate, there will be straight communication. Then and there will be striated. So this lentiform nucleus along with the caudate is called as the striatum. As we know, corpus striatum includes caudate nucleus, the lentiform nucleus together. But striatum or the neostriatum includes the lentiform nucleus and the caudate nucleus. Then what is mean by the pallidum or paleostriatum? That includes only the globus pallidus. This is the view of the cross section. From laterally, the lateralmost will be the putamen. Next to it will be the globus pallidus. Medialmost will be the thalamus. In the median aspect, third ventricle will be present. You can see the head end of the caudate and the tail end of the caudate nucleus engulfing the thalamus, but it is related to lentiform nucleus. Head is communicating with the lentiform nucleus and tail is related to it. This is the cadaveric view of the brain. You can see the putamen on the lateral aspect, and medially will be the lentiform. This one is going to be the globus pallidus. Then comes the internal capsule. Medial to it will be the thalamus. You can see the head end of the caudate nucleus, but tail end is not much visualized in a cadaveric view. And if we see it in the MRI, this is the view of it. This is going to be the putamen, and here will be the globus pallidus. And this one is going to be the internal capsule. Medial to it will be the thalamus. Here comes the head of the caudate nucleus. If possible, here will be the tail of the caudate nucleus. This is going to be a 3D view of the structures of basal ganglion. If we see it as a cross section, this is the aspect we will be seeing. Only the head end and tail end of the caudate nucleus will be appreciated. The structures are going to be the same. Lateralmost putamen, medial will be the globus pallidus. Next medial structure will be the internal capsule and the thalamus. The head and tail end only will be appreciated. It will be engulfing the thalamus, but it is licking the putamen. This is going to be the cadaveric view of it. The lateralmost putamen, the medial globus pallidus, and the internal capsule. Medial to it will be the thalamus. Above here will be the caudate nucleus. The tail end probably will be here, and the MRI view of it will be upcoming. Yes, this is going to be the MRI view of it. This is the lateral ventricular cavity, and this is going to be the third ventricular cavity. This is the putamen, globus pallidus, internal capsule, thalamus, and the caudate. In the previous slides, we have seen about what is basal ganglia, what are the parts of basal ganglia, and the clear location of it. From this slide onwards, we will see the relationship of individual structures. First, we will see about the caudate nucleus. The caudate nucleus, as explained, it is tadpole in shape. It has a head, it has a body, and it has a tail. At its tail end, it consists of the amygdaloid body. Amygdaloid body is a continuation of the tail of the caudate nucleus, but it is not a part of it. It is a part of the limbic system. The caudate nucleus parts are the head, body, and the tail. The generalized relationship we have seen, specific relationship of the caudate nucleus we will see here. The caudate nucleus is related laterally with the anterior limb of internal capsule and the lentiform nucleus. The lentiform nucleus and this is separated by the anterior limb of internal capsule. And below the internal capsule, a band of gray matter called as fundus striae, nothing but the head of the caudate is connected to the putamen by means of gray fibers or the gray matter called as the fundus striae. Apart from that, there are still more patches of neuronal masses extending between the head of the caudate nucleus and the putamen, and so only it is called as striate. And coming to the relationship of the tail of caudate nucleus, the tail is related to the thalamus anteriorly and the globus pallidus, and this is separated by the external capsule. Coming to the lentiform nucleus already the division of it we have told, and when it comes to the relation, we know from the cross section itself that laterally the lentiform nucleus is related to the external capsule, the claustrum, and lies the extreme capsule, and finally will be the insula. Medially, it is related to the internal capsule. Above, it is related to the corona radiata. Below, from before backwards, it continues as the continuation of the gray matter of anterior perforating substance. It connects a band of gray matter with the head of the caudate nucleus below the anterior limb of internal capsule, and it is separated from the inferior horn of the lateral ventricle by the external capsule, sublentiform part of the internal capsule, tail of the caudate nucleus, and the stria terminalis. The prefrontal area, it is also called as the silent area of the brain, but that fellow is not a silent person. That particular area is very important for thinking, for mature judgment, or for tackling a situation. For example, if we sit ideal, my brain is thinking to take a pen and draw. That idea is initiated by the prefrontal region or the prefrontal area. The prefrontal area, after thinking this, should implement. So that particular stimulus is consulted with the basal ganglia via the corticostrial fibers. Yes, so basal ganglia is the minister here, where the kingmakers will discuss, and the stimulus given out by the basal ganglia will be the trigger factor for the motor action. I repeat, the prefrontal area, after coming out with an idea, will not directly stimulate the motor centers. It will first consult with the basal ganglia. The basal ganglia, after channelizing, will pass the impulse via passing through the thalamus. The thalamus only will be communicating with the cortex via the thalamocortical fibers, and that impulse produced will be for the motor action. It passes via the corticonuclear fibers or via the corticospinal fibers. So the basal ganglia is the kingmaker. It is going to stimulate. It is going to be the minister. It is a very powerful person to channelize the decisions. Though the idea is coming from the king, though the soldiers are going to work, this fellow minister is only going to channelize it. Yes. So according to that, the action of the basal, or the main function of the basal ganglia is voluntary movement, postural control, and control of the muscle tone. In voluntary movement, initiation of the movement, I told na, I think to take a pen, that is initiation of the movement. That impulse is also first channelized or triggered by the basal ganglia. Then the control of the ramp movement change from one pattern to the other. Simultaneously, we will be doing 2 or 3 works. I will take the pen and then write, and then I will keep the pen again. 2 to 3 actions together is taking place. One action is exhibited and another one is inhibited. So all these are channelized by this basal ganglia. The programming and correcting movement while in progress, that is via the thalamocortical circuits, it is controlling. Coming to the postural control, writing the reflex or automatic associated movements, that is walking. And finally, about the control of the muscle tone, it is controlling via the reticulospinal and the vestibulospinal tracts. The prefrontal, the corpus striatum. While we are studying about the pathway in the upcoming slides, a direct pathway, the indirect pathways we will be discussing. Before that, we should know the afferent connections and efferent connections, the names of the afferent and the efferent connections. For simplicity, the first slide we will be talking about the connections names alone. The afferent connections are the corticostriate fibers, thalamostriate fibers, and the nigrostriate fibers. Corticostriate fibers are the fibers from the cortex to the striatum. Striatum, we know, the caudate and the putamen together makes the striatum. The next fiber, the thalamostriate fibers, will be from the thalamus to the striatum. The nigrostriate fibers will be from the substantia nigra to the striatum. The efferent connections are ansa lenticularis and the fasciculus lenticularis. The ansa lenticularis, the very ancient nomenclature is ansa lenticularis. The fibers from the lentiform nucleus to the thalamus is named as ansa lenticularis. Wherever ansa is named, there will be a loop or curved passage of the fibers present. Fasciculus lenticularis is nothing but the fibers will be passing from the globus pallidus internus to the thalamus. So these are the afferent and the efferent connections of corpus striatum. So coming to the direct pathway of basal ganglia, the prefrontal area is going to think and it is going to consult with the basal ganglia. So via the corticostrial fibers, the prefrontal region is communicating with the striatum. Here stimulation is done. Here what is secreted is glutamate, or it is also called as glutaminergic pathway or glutaminergic neurons. From the striatum, this striatum is going to communicate with the globus pallidus internus and to the substantia nigra, especially to the pars reticulata. Here we know substantia nigra consists of pars reticulata and the compacta. Reticulata is the ventrally placed layer. These impulses are gone to the globus pallidus internus and the substantia nigra. These functions are inhibitory in action. Here GABAergic neurons are used for this path. From these both region, again the fibers, the neurons will be connecting to the thalamus. Here via the pallidothalamic tract, the inhibitory action of the GABAergic neurons are taking place. The loop formed by the fibers is called as the ansa lenticularis. That is, from the globus pallidus internus to the thalamus is called as ansa lenticularis. These fibers are going to secrete GABA cells, which is going to inhibit the thalamus. So what happens? Thalamus is going to shoot up the cortex, or it is going to stimulate the cortex by secreting glutamate. Where the centers are the motor centers, the premotor center or the primary motor center or the supplementary motor center for the action. From the cortex, the planned action will be executed via the corticospinal and the corticobulbar or nuclear fibers. So this is going to be the direct pathway. An idea got acknowledged by the basal ganglia, and then it is consulted with the other part of the basal ganglia via the thalamus. the impulses is given, everything will happen in fraction of seconds. Yes, so this is going to be the direct pathway. Just understand, from the cortex to the striatum, it is excitatory. It secretes glutamate. From the striatum to the globus pallidus internus and to the substantia nigra reticulata layer, it will be inhibitory function. It is going to inhibit GABA production, and since the GABA production is inhibited here, again the neurons from the globus pallidus internus and substantia nigra to the thalamus also is inhibited. The GABA cells produced is inhibited. That is going to shoot up the thalamus to produce more glutamate to the cortex. That is going to shoot up the cortex to act immediately for an action. This is going to be the direct pathway. Comes the schematic representation of the direct pathway of basal ganglia. From the motor cortex, more of the glutamate is synthesized and it is stimulating the striatum. From the striatum, the GABA cells synthesis is going to inhibit the globus pallidus internus and the substantia nigra. The synthesis from the substantia nigra is dopamine that is going to help. It is like a trigger factor for this basal ganglia itself. This is going to have an influence on the striatum as well as the globus pallidus internus. All together, these all is going to inhibit on the thalamus via the GABA cell synthesis. The thalamus is so it is stimulating the glutamate and so make the motor area of the cortex to increase the action. More of muscle movement will be seen. This is all about the direct pathway. The motor cortex is going to stimulate the glutamate from the striatum. Since the muscle wants to inhibit an action, the stimulus is given to globus pallidus externus as well as to the substantia nigra. But from the externus, the GABAergic fibers are going to inhibit the subthalamic nucleus. This subthalamic nucleus is going to synthesis more of glutamate on the globus pallidus internus. This is going to inhibit the GABA synthesis on the thalamus. Since there is no influencing of GABA cell on thalamus, ultimately the thalamus is not going to stimulate, so it is going to be less in stimulatory action on the motor cortex. So there is no impulse from the thalamus. The motor cortex is not going to agitate. So there will be decreased movement appreciated in the muscle. This is all about the indirect pathway. Coming to the indirect pathway, here a bit difference will be there because when one is stimulated, another action should be inhibited. For that sake, initially from the cortex to the striatum, the impulse will be stimulated, but from the striatum, the impulses will be passing to the globus pallidus externus layer. From there, the fibers will pass to the subthalamus, and from the subthalamus, the fibers will pass to the globus pallidus internus and the substantia nigra. From these two regions, again, the fibers will reach the thalamus, and from the thalamus, the fibers are connecting to the cortex layer. Here we want to see which are the exhibitory action and where comes the inhibitory action. When we come to the first fiber from the cortex to the striatum, that is going to secrete glutamate, glutamatergic neurons. It is going to excitatory or it is going to stimulate the action, whether to do or not. To react for it or not, it is going to be discussed by the basal ganglia. From the striatum, the impulses are passing via the striopallidal fibers to the to the globus pallidus externus. That is going to be inhibitory, where the GABA cells are inhibited. The fibers from the globus pallidus externus to the subthalamic nucleus is also going to inhibit the GABA cells formed. From the subthalamic nucleus, the GABA cells are stimulated to the internal globus pallidus and the substantia nigra layer of the midbrain. From there, again inhibition action is done via the fibers to the thalamus. The GABA cells are inhibited here from the thalamus. So, the glutamate synthesis is ceased or inhibited, that lead to the cortex to stop acting for a impulse, that is keeping mum. When a hand is working, the flexor is going to act while the extensor should be at rest. So the flexor action will be having the direct pathway, the extensor will be having the indirect pathway. So as such, the function of basal ganglia, it consists of both direct and indirect pathway. Altogether, both the pathway are required for coordinating and smooth movement. The direct pathway is required for the promotion of voluntary movements in targeted muscle. The indirect pathway is essential for inhibiting the movement of the other muscles. When I am taking a pen, my other hand should not beat it. So that is inhibiting another action. The other centers are inhibited. Only this particular action of taking the pen is directed or it is promoted. Yes, so that makes the direct and indirect pathway, they both go hand in hand for coordinating and the smooth action of the movements. In Parkinson's disease, substantia nigra at the level of midbrain is the target. Substantia nigra is for synthesis of dopamine. If there is a lesion at that level or there is less synthesis of dopamine, it will ultimately result in Parkinson's disease. Classic example is Parkinson's disease. The nigrostrial tract will be carrying out the dopamine secreted by the or synthesized by the substantia nigra to the globus pallidus internus. What happens here? This dopamine acts directly as well as indirectly on both the pathways of basal ganglia. If there is less secretion of dopamine in the direct pathway, the prime function of direct pathway is motor action, that is stimulating the cortex to do an action. When there is less secretion of the dopamine, hopefully there will be less impulse to the cortex, that leads to less movement of the muscle or no movement of the muscle. If there is less movement, that is called as hypokinesia, and if there is no movement appreciated, that is called as akinesia. It is going to be the first symptom of Parkinson's disease. And what happens if this inhibited secretion of dopamine act on indirect cycle? The indirect pathway is responsible for the inhibition of the muscle tone. Yes, so what happens here? This dopamine is going to control or inhibit the upcoming synthesis. Here what happens due to uncontrolled dopaminic effect, the inhibitory action of indirect cycle of basal ganglia is stimulated. That leads to unnecessary movement of the muscle of the body via the impulse given out by the brain centers. That leads to tremor. The second symptom of Parkinson's is tremor. The third one is from the cortex via the cortico-reticular fibers. The fibers reaches the reticulospinal fibers. This is confined with the reticular system. Here what happens, due to the inhibition of the cortex, there will be less stimulation to the cortico-reticular fibers, which is going to stimulate more the reticulospinal fibers. So reticulospinal fibers is going to stimulate it more, that acts on the muscles. There, if continuous impulse is given to the muscle, what happens there ultimately? There will be spasm or rigidity. So rigidity is the third main symptom of Parkinson's disease. This happens in Parkinson's disease. The three major symptoms we appreciate in Parkinson's disease is hypokinesia or akinesia, tremor, and rigidity. The second clinical condition is Huntington's disease. It is going to be a hereditary disorder where the synthesis of GABA is disturbed or diminished at the striatonigral neurons level. So here what happens, since these synthesis are arrested or decreased, there will be involuntary movements present, there will be balancing problem, there will be episodic angry and irritability to the patient, there will be dystonic movement appreciated, and the fine movement of the muscle are lost in this condition. Anatomically speaking, you should know that striatonigral neurons are affected and the GABA synthesis is reduced in this condition. The third condition, what we see is athetosis. Here, the putamen is damaged as a result of birth injury. What happens here is there will be the characterized by slow worm-like movement of the extremities. It chiefly affects the fingers and wrist. So at the end, to summarize, if basal ganglia is asked, you should give an introduction about basal ganglia, what it is, where it is located, what all the structures makes the basal ganglia, that is parts of basal ganglia. Then you should describe individually the each parts of the basal ganglia and its relationship. Then about the connections of corpus striatum. First, you should explain about the afferent and efferent connections, then about the direct and the indirect pathways of it. Lastly, about the clinical anatomy. Individually, each disorder should be explained in detail and what sort of fibers are affected, we should explain with the proper clinical anatomy. And that ends the basal ganglia. Thank you, girls.